Hi there, Dr. Carlos Todd here with another video on how to fight less, love more. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about divorce anger. This series, we're talking about divorce anger and how do you manage the rage during separation. Some people have deep rage, anger during separation, and it can cause them to do some really awful things. So how do you manage that rage, right? Anger can make people during a divorce do things and say things that they regret. I've seen it. You turn up at your partner's house or your ex's house in the middle of the night, right? Because you think that there's somebody else at the house. And I've seen situations where people take accounts away, try to remove the other person from accounts. They file all kinds of different motions, right, to antagonize the situation. You know, demand furniture, demand things. It can be out of control. And at the end of the day, you know who wins? The lawyers. That's who wins, right? You don't really want that situation. Divorce anger can be, if you look at some of my other videos, sometimes anger can be driven by some secondary emotion. I talked about this in other videos, but it can be driven by grief, the loss of what you thought was going to be a healthy relationship. And so that's something that can become, you're just dealing with grief, and it's important to recognize that. Feelings of rejection, feelings of betrayal, feelings of fear and loss and disappointment, they all are happening at the same time. And almost always, anger is kind of the thing that comes out, but it's really not the thing that, the deeper emotion is really some other thing or some set of other things. That emotional combination can increase explosive reactions, and you really need to be able to understand and manage those things. Unfortunately, during separation, people are often making major life decisions while being emotionally charged, right? So what are some things, considerations that you may have around divorce anger? Divorce often feels like an emotional trauma because it is. What is trauma? Trauma is essentially when your emotional resources are overwhelmed by the actual event itself, right? You don't have the bandwidth to handle a major emotional event, and that is effectively trauma. We used to think about traumas coming back from war or an assault or something like that, but anything that overwhelms a person's emotional resources is effectively a trauma. So a divorce is going to be something like that. It affects your sense of identity. Who am I? Your stability, right? The life that you thought that you're going to have, and I mean, now you have to define your life differently. Your family structure. Who are my friends? Who's my family? Your routines. It's all disrupted. Future expectations. You know, you have to define, where do I go? What goals should I have? How should I operate going forward? And those things can drive this trauma response, right? It's something that I see in my work all the time. Being able to recognize that your identity shifts after divorce, and being able to sit with the fact that what was no longer is, and slowly defining who you are. People have fear of starting over, right? Like, I talk to women in particular, and there's a real fear. What is going to be my life like starting over? What is it going to look like, right? And I remind people that, you know, the same strength that you use to raise children, to build your career so far, is going to be the strength that you will use to build a new life that you're trying to create. So what's the other thing, the other point to consider about a divorce anger? Anger often covers more vulnerable emotions, and we talked about this in the other video. Anger is that thing that covers up other emotions. For many people, they feel anger, but they're really feeling sadness. But it's safer to express the anger than it is to express the sadness. They feel rejected, they feel abandoned, they feel scared, they feel hurt. But people don't walk around and say, look, I feel anger or hurt or scared. Well, they don't walk around and say, I feel hurt, scared, rejected, abandoned. They'll say, I feel angry. That's going to be their response. Anger is easier to express, but the thing about anger is that you don't really get to decipher what the emotion is. If you say I feel angry, okay, I mean, that tracks, right? Your life is not what you thought it will be. But what if you said I feel rejected? Now you can do something like that. What caused the rejection? In what way was I rejected? What can I do about this rejection? So anger looks outward. I'm angry at you for doing this to me. Rejection can help you look inward. Okay, I know that I feel rejected because of what you did, but what can I do about this rejection? One of the things that I see in my work is that men just struggle with being vulnerable. And, this is a point of concern because that struggle with vulnerability can lead to internalized anger. And these are the kinds of things that can lead to depression. It's something that we don't really want. You don't want it. You don't want it. You don't want it at all. You end up with this emotional armor that doesn't allow you to introspect. Well, here's the thing about anger, right? Or emotions in general. So the thing is that, I tell clients all the time that emotions aren't for girls, right? So this idea, oh, I feel sad, I feel happy, I feel that, and this is a thing that women do. Women express emotion. But the reality of it is emotions tell us who we are. Emotions are kind of like a sensation that tells you that there's something going on inside of you that you need to assess. For what reason? You assess it because knowing that thing gives you a window into what your needs are. So it is a problem when you see anger or you see the expression of emotions as for women. Well, when in reality, whether you are aware of it, can verbalize it, can do anything about it or not, that emotion is still acting on you. The feeling of rejection, the feeling of abandonment, the feeling of fear is still there, whether you can name it and claim it, right? It's still there. But if you can name it, I feel rejected or abandoned, these are different emotions. What caused the rejection? What caused the abandonment? And what can I do about this? At what times do I feel this abandonment? How intense is the abandonment? How often I feel it? Then you can avoid certain people, certain situations. You can learn self-talk because now you have this specific emotion, these circumstances, and I can do this about it. And so I think being able to understand that expressing vulnerable emotions is not for girls. Expressing vulnerable emotions is for everybody who wants to gain greater control over themselves, over their lives. Co-parenting issues. I won't say too much about this, but co-parenting issues can really intensify people's anger and takes up a lot of time. It impacts how people communicate, issues around coordinating schedules, making decisions together about the children. It's a major issue. And then some of the issues in the relationship where one person had more power, quote unquote, in the relationship can show up in this co-parenting, and you may have to learn skills, yes, about how to communicate, but also how to set boundaries and using forms of communication that ultimately will remove or can help remove the emotion. For some people, it's by text. Some people are actually able to talk and regulate themselves. Some people have to use co-parenting apps where information is sent, is filtered through a third party, and then you respond. So there's a third party in the middle that helps to manage these communication. So I want to say too much about that. Anger during divorce can lead to destructive decisions, right? Things like rage texting, threatening messages. Oh boy, the social media wars, right? People going back and forth on social media. You don't want that. Ultimate issue here is the consequences to the legal consequences. I said this earlier in this video that the people who win at the end of the day are those attorneys or mediators that you're charging $350, $400 an hour. They're charging you, and they get to bill that time while you fight these wars. And I've seen people go bankrupt over this stuff. Just really not where you want to be. And then your children are absorbing this tension, and I think it just kind of creates problems. The issue with divorce anger is that it can become chronic. So that's my fifth point here too, is that you don't learn ways to regulate yourself. You take this in other relationships, you take this stuff into other situations, and it impacts your physical health, it impacts how you parent in the future, and it impacts your emotional well-being. It's a real struggle that you don't want to be part of your life. It promotes bitterness and cynicism, and that can be a real challenge. So what do? Recognize that managing anger does not mean pretending that the hurt is not occurring. I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to acknowledge that anger has deeper roots and paying attention to those deeper roots so that you can regulate enough to get through it and move on with your life. I want you to be able to regulate it. I want you to be able to slow your responses. I want you to be able to communicate with intention. We have this issue around scheduling little Johnny for basketball. What is the main issue? What do we agree on? What do we disagree on? Or how do we compromise, right? Seems simple. You add the emotions in there. You didn't pay for basketball. When he was 2, 3, 4. Well, not 2, but when he was 7, 8, 9. But now you're asking me to pay for it. None of those things really matter. So it's learning how to find ways, how to break things down into specific points and how to respond effectively. Learning how to protect yourself emotionally, right? Recognizing that if you divorce and the kids are 7, 8, 9, and you got to do this for another 10 years, it doesn't really seem practical. One of the biggest skills that you want to learn in separation is learning to pause before reacting. What does that do? It helps helps you to downregulate, because keep in mind that it is the adrenaline and cortisol that drives you towards responding, and sometimes pausing helps your body and your brain to regulate, and then you're in a place where you can respond differently. Not every feeling requires immediate action. So because you have a strong feeling about a thing, you don't have to respond immediately to that thing. Not every emotional impulse needs to turn into communication. Yeah, so recognizing that is important. If you need therapy, if you need a mediator, all these things help. It is important to recognize that your goal is to focus on stability, not winning. How do we create some level of stability so that these kids can get what they need over time? So again, you want to focus on stability, because many people become consumed by proving a point, getting revenge, being validated, and there are unfortunately many people in jail or dead because of these conflicts. And you don't, was it worth it? I don't think so. And even if it's not jail or death, it is a situation going on that you just don't want. If you're going through divorce right now or separation, understand this: unmanaged anger is going to create more pain for you. And so learning the skills very early on is good for your health, it's good for the children, it's good for your future. So I hope I gave you some ideas on where some of this anger comes from, and then what are some of the things you can do to effectively regulate and kind of move past this, right? So those are my thoughts on how to fight less, love more. And click the links below for videos on actually courses on anger management, and also courses on how to fight less, love more in the context of relationship situations. Take care until the next video.